Hey guys, what is going on? This is Travis P11. I'd like to welcome you back to the channel. And today we're doing a little cleanup of this Mossberg Maverick 88 security model pump shotgun. I had an opportunity to shoot this shotgun for the first time last weekend at a shooting competition, so it definitely is ready for a clean. If this is your first shotgun, you bought a good one. Disassembly is pretty simple. Reassembly can be a little more complicated, but don't get frustrated. The more you do it, the easier it's going to be. And let's go and get started talking about some of the basic cleaning supplies and tools we will need for this disassembly and cleaning. All right, guys, so let's talk about some of the basic supplies that you need to get by. I've done probably at this point 80 different cleaning videos, and I still have people that give me suggestions for ways that they like to do things differently or what works best for them. But at a minimum, when it comes to cleaning a shotgun, I just recommend you start off with a 12 gauge shotgun cleaning kit. This is the Hoppe's cleaning kit. They run about 15 bucks. Basically, everything you need is essentially right here except for cotton patches. You're going to get some lubricating gun oil. You're going to get some bore cleaner. This stuff works really good. I've already run out of the small bottle that comes with it, so I buy bigger bottles of it because I do a lot of cleaning videos. You're going to get yourself, I believe, a bore brush, and you're also going to get the jags to put the patches on. I can't remember if you also get the bore mop or not, but those are only $1. They're usually right next to all the accessories in your gun store. Not a problem trying to find it. Also handy to have, you can use an old toothbrush if you want to. These are nylon cleaning brushes that are made by Allen. They're pretty inexpensive, but they work really good. Actually, these are Hoppe's, but you can use an old toothbrush if you want to. Nice to have some sort of a flashlight so we can check the bore and make sure that it's clean. Now, when it comes to cleaning the actual gun, like I said before, you're going to want some gun bore cleaner. And then also as a protective lubricant, you have a couple choices. I'm a huge fan of Cleanse Oil. I've been cleaning with their products for years now. I like Cleanse Oil because it cleans and protects, but it doesn't leave things really greasy or runny or overly lubricated. It does a really good job. It protects your firearms. Otherwise, if you don't, this is a little more expensive. You can always go with some break-free CLP, Safariland. You can get this stuff at Walmart. Just a couple coats, and you're basically one to wipe off and one to lubricate, and you're all set to go. Other things that'll definitely help out, some Q-tips. I prefer tipped and power swabs, and that's just because these don't break like Q-tips do. These give you a little more rigidity, and they tend to stay together better, so you get less little cotton hairs going all over the place. So these are just a couple bucks per package. You're going to definitely need some sort of a pin punch. You could probably get by with something else, but this is what I tend to use. Just got a set of these at Harbor Freight for like $5. They're nice to have, especially if you're going to have the gun for a while. You may need to do some advanced disassembly down the road, so that's something to think about. But you'll need one to push out the pin to pull out the trigger pack. And then finally, a bore snake. This isn't necessary, but this just makes cleanups in the field super easy. You put a couple drops of lubrication on it, pull it through your barrel a few times, and it's enough to at least get your barrel clean enough to keep hunting, or clean enough to keep your gun preserved until you get home. Otherwise, I prefer to use just the traditional, bristle brush and follow up with a bore mop. So with that being said, why don't we go ahead and get started? All right, so before we check to make sure that the firearm is in fact unloaded, I also recommend some nitrile or latex gloves. A good idea to just limit your amount of lead exposure and chemical exposure from the stuff we're going to use. So to check and make sure that the firearm is unloaded, there's a button right here in the rear bottom of the receiver you can push. So go ahead and press that down and pump the shotgun. Okay, you can pump it a couple times, make sure nothing comes out. Just check in the chamber, verify it's empty. Good. All right, let's go on to the next step. Now, the shotgun does not have any kind of choke tubes in it, so we won't be taking out any choke tubes, but the first thing we're going to do is just go ahead and take off the sling. So if you have a sling on your shotgun, go ahead and remove the sling, and we will go on to the next step. Okay, make sure that you've got the receiver chamber open, and the first thing we're going to do is just go ahead and take the screw off the magazine tube. So this is going to take a little while. Now, there might be a little bit of this barrel might push forward when you take this off, and that's totally fine. Now, on this security model, this screw will not actually come off, but so we are going to wipe it off just to make sure it's clean, but it has a washer in there that basically prevents it from coming out, so don't worry about that. It's going to stay in there. And just go ahead and pull the barrel forward and set the barrel off to the side. We will clean the barrel first. Okay, so go ahead and assemble your cleaning rod and make sure you have what's called a jag screwed on the end here. This is going to allow you to put a couple patches in place. We're going to dunk these in the barrel cleaner, and we're going to go ahead and get that barrel, I like to call it marinated. You want to get it so it's coated so that the cleaner can start to soak into the barrel and break up all that carbon fouling and deposits. Be careful because this can be a little bit messy. I also recommend putting down some paper towels and maybe catch any of the fluid that might come out of the patches. And again, we're just using the shotgun bore patches. We're not using the actual cotton patches. You can use cotton patches if you want to, but these are a little bit larger and they just tend to just wipe the solution inside the barrel. So we're just going to put this in. We're going to work this in and out of the barrel. I like to twist it as I push down on the barrel. And then it kind of gets a nice good little wipe inside the barrel itself. And then we'll just bring it back a couple times. And it really does kind of give you an idea as to just how dirty that barrel is. And it's not too bad. Okay, we're gonna push that through. Now I like to let this sit for about 5 minutes or so before we start the cleaning process. So we're just gonna let that soak in and then we will come right back. Give yourself about 5 minutes. Also, if you have any excess cleaning solution that gets on the bottom of this like barrel lug, just go ahead and wipe it off with a dry patch and then we'll apply some oil to it in a little bit. Okay, so go ahead and take your 12 gauge bristle brush. Now, if you didn't get one of these with your cleaning kit, you should, but if you didn't, you can just go ahead and buy one. They're just a couple dollars. I'm very OCD about this part, and this is probably the biggest disagreement that viewers have with me on this particular video. I like to just simply push everything out towards the front of the barrel. I don't like to pull the bristle brush back because you're kind of going against the way that everything's flowing out of the barrel, and you're also bringing all that crud back in, so you're potentially going to get carbon and little bits of metal and such in this area. And the idea is to just keep everything moving forward to keep it clean. You know what? You do you. Doesn't really matter, but this is basically how I do it. Also, good idea to have a little something on the end of the barrel to catch any of the debris that might come out on the end. So let's just go ahead and push that cleaning rod through. Okay, I'm gonna do this about 3 or 4 times. I'm gonna unscrew it and run it from the rear. If you wanna pull back, you're welcome to, but that's totally up to you. Now, if you happen to have a bore snake, you know, at this point, you can go ahead and do that, but it is gonna bring a lot of crud out with it. But if you want a bore snake from the rear to the front, you can do that. I'm just gonna kind of keep it traditional or typical with what a lot of people are gonna be doing with the cleaning kit. So I'm just gonna take a patch, put a couple drops of oil on it. And then I'm going to do the same thing that I did when I put that bore cleaner on the patches initially. I'm just going to push the rod in from the rear and just kind of twist and turn as I push down to the end of the barrel. Now for this, I will be taking off the end cap and pushing from the back to the front. If you just want to pull from the front to the rear, that's totally up to you. I know, guys, I'm weird. Okay, we're going to repeat that process a couple times. So that's kind of what it looks like. That's what it looks like after the first pass there. I know this isn't a rifled barrel, but this kind of like swirly motion, this just kind of scrubs the inside of the barrel. But again, if you just want to push through, that's totally cool too. Okay, so I'm going to change and do a couple more of these patches until they come out clean, and then we'll go to the final phase. So something I do want to say is if you keep pushing patches through and that patch isn't coming out clean, just feel free to take your copper bristle brush down there a couple more times to break it up. You can always do another coating of bore solvent if you want to, and then the brush through again. And when it's finally done, it looks kind of something like this. It's just a little bit dirty, but not bad at all. And then what we're going to do is finish up by just pushing this mop down once or twice down from the back of the barrel to the front. This is basically just kind of a mop that's going to finish the job for us and just leave a protective coating inside the barrel. So just put a couple drops on it. That's all you really have to do. Just use your hands to just make sure there's just a little bit all the way around. Okay. And this is going to preserve the barrel as long as you need it to sit until you use it next time. So back to front, maybe 2 times. We'll take a look at the barrel and see if it's clean. Now, I didn't show you a before and after, but the barrel was pretty dirty. It looked like there was just like a coating inside of it. And that was from all the shot shells that went through it earlier. Okay, so this is not a chrome lined barrel, but if you have something nice and shiny like this, I'm not sure if you guys can see that or not, that actually looks really, really good, okay? Should be nice and shiny inside and you're all set. Okay, we're just gonna wipe off the barrel with a patch with a couple drops of oil on it. We'll set the barrel off to the side and we will move on to the receiver. Okay guys, so removal of the trigger pack is pretty simple. What we're gonna do is just take a 1/8 inch pin punch and we're going to just go ahead and press on this pin right here. I have it sitting on a roll of masking tape just to make it easy to get the pin out. Kind of go from an angle so you can see it, just push down. The first time I did this, it was pretty loose. It just came right out with no issues. Okay, pull out your pin, go ahead and set that off to the side, and then just go ahead and grab your trigger pack. I do have the safety on, and go ahead and pull it out. There we go, and we will show you how to clean up the trigger pack. It's pretty simple. Okay, so at this point, go ahead and make sure that your safety is off. Put your thumb on top of the hammer and just slowly pull the trigger and let go. There you go, and we're just gonna, this will give us better access to everything that we have all the way around. Lubrication points are pretty simple on this. There's just, where you see these 3 pins, I like to put 1 drop of oil on each side of that. You don't want to over lubricate it, but just ensures that any rotating parts have some oil. There's also a pin right here that you can see right above the trigger that you guys will be able to lubricate also. So let's go ahead and do that right now. Okay, just go ahead and have yourself a little patch on standby here. So just a single drop. So 1 drop, 1 drop, 1 drop, 1 drop. Let it sit for just a few seconds and then wipe off the excess. Again, you don't want this overly lubricated. You don't want a bunch of grime and debris accumulating in this area because there's a lot of moving parts. Okay, other side. 1 drop, 1 drop, 1 drop. And that's basically it. Okay, so go ahead and just wipe it off. Okay, Now you can take your brush if you need to and just brush it off if necessary, just any grass or any kind of grime or anything that's in here. It's pretty much self-contained, there isn't much you have to do to it, so drop oil on a patch, just wipe off the metal parts, including the hammer. You can go ahead and recock the hammer if you want to. Go ahead and put the safety back on. There we go. And we'll just keep it this way when we reinstall it. Just go ahead and wipe it off, make sure everything has just a general protective coat, and we will go on to the next step. It's very simple. No disassembly required. Okay, so I got the headlamp on so you guys can see what's going on here. There's two little bars on the inside of the receiver here. They just kind of snap into place. They only fit on one side and the other. You really can't make a mistake. Let's grab the top bar, or it's going to be on the left-hand side. Just take the bar and set it off to the side. There's another bar that's on the right-hand side here, so go ahead and pull that one out. And we will set those off to the side. Let's go ahead and just wipe those off with a patch with some oil on it and put them off to the side. You can scrub them if necessary, but mine aren't too dirty, so we'll just give them a good wipe down, set them off to the side, and go on to the next step. Okay, now what we want to do is slide back the bolt so we can take this bottom portion of the bolt that's called the action out. So we're going to pull that back a little bit, and you'll actually be able to see the entire piece with the tabs on it, and we can simply just pull it right out. There you go. Let's go ahead and set that off to the side, and we will move on. Okay, up next, we have basically a shot shell guide. It's just almost like a pair of tongs. It has two little tabs on each side. You're going to go ahead and just lift that up. You're going to push your bolt forward a little bit so that you're able to pull this part out when you squeeze it together. And just go ahead and squeeze, and it should just come right out. Okay, go ahead and set that off to the side. Now at this point, we can just go ahead and take the bolt mechanism, just slide it out of the front of the receiver, and we'll get this part cleaned off next. All right, so let's move on. Okay, so now it's kind of nice to have a brush around if you needed to do any kind of scrubbing on the bolt itself. There's kind of a three-step process I follow, whether I use CLP or whether I use cleanse oil. The first one is applying the cleaning part of the solution, which is just the oil itself, right? So just take a wet patch with some oil on it and just go ahead and wipe off your metal parts. What this is going to do is this is going to kind of get in there and penetrate and break up any of those powder deposits or any kind of rust or any kind of oxidation that might be starting to form. Okay. So we'll go ahead and take that guy, set it off to the side. The bottom portion of the bolt or the action, let's go ahead and wipe that off. Also at this point, you're going to start to notice some metal-to-metal contact that's happening, some wear marks that are starting to happen. Those are definitely points where you want to make sure that you have lubrication, because that is showing you places where you are having contact that's going to start wearing down the fastest. So always make sure that you have lubrication on those points. Now you can scrub this down if you need to. This is a very rough matte finish part, so it's not going to look very shiny. Just wipe it off a few times with a patch with some oil on it. Make sure you get in those channels right there. Make sure they're nice and clean. You can use the Q-tips in there if you want to. This is looking pretty good, surprisingly. With all the rounds that we put through it, I'm pleasantly surprised. So that's nice and clean. Okay, we'll go and set that off to the side. Okay, then we'll go ahead and hit this. Now with your main bolt itself, just go ahead and wipe off the front. And we want to hit this with a dry patch because you don't want to leave any kind of lubrication on your bolt face. You don't want that getting in there with your firing pin. Don't put any drips or drops on the front of it, obviously. Just kind of get in there with your fingernail where all the channels are. Just wipe it all off. It's a pretty much maintenance-free part. You can do further disassembly if you need to, but really, I wouldn't worry about it. I think you're going to be fine. Now on this shotgun, I'm already starting to see a little bit of wear on the top of the bolt, on the back. It did have a little gouge that was put in it from the factory. There's nothing I can do about that. But any of those parts where you see that wear, always make sure you have some sort of lubrication on those parts. Okay, now I'm going to take these three parts. We're going to take a dry patch to them and wipe off the excess. And what this is going to do is just take off any of that carbon that the cleaner was breaking down, that the oil was breaking down. Guys, CLP, it's all basically the same thing. It cleans and lubricates and protects. Because sometimes people say, so is the oil the same thing as the CLP? I don't get it. So CLP is just any kind of 3-in-1. You know, it even says, you know, CLP, cleaner, lubricant, and preservative. So again, I do the three-step process. Some people might just wipe it on and wipe it off and don't worry about it. So we're going to make sure that there's no oil residue at this time on any of the parts. And you can see it's already taken off some of that carbon. Now, what we're going to do is take our last patch, just light, gentle coat of oil. You don't need to soak the gun. Okay, just make sure that everything has some sort of just it's been wiped off one more time. So let's go and do that. Wipe out the insides. Okay, we'll just set this off to the side for reassembly. Okay, your action here, just go ahead and wipe that off. Okay. Okay, takes care of that. And then the bolt itself. Wipe off the top and the sides. Make sure you have a little bit of lubricant in this channel right here. And any place that you see metal wear, any place that black finish is starting to disappear, you're seeing metal on metal contact, that is where you want lubricant. Okay, I'm going to take my dry patch here and just wipe off the bolt face. so there's no buildup on there. We'll set that off to the side, and let's go on to our next step. All right, now we'll go ahead and take off the hand guard. Now this is basically just kind of a one-piece deal. It's all basically as it is. There isn't much you can do to it. You could run some cleaning patches down here if you want to. I'm really not going to worry about it. But if you want to, go ahead and maybe just run a cloth through it. That'd be fine. Just to take off any kind of buildup that might be in there. And these two little stalks that come off your hand guard, just go ahead and wipe them off. You can do the 3-step process on these if you want to. Generally, one is going to be good enough because they're not going to be super dirty. But if you want to wipe them off, dry them, and wipe them off again, you're more than welcome to. And that's really is the situation with just about anything that we've done today, although the bolt itself tends to take a little bit more work. Okay, we're going to set that off to the side. Okay, so now at this point, let's just go ahead and wipe off the magazine tube. We're not going to be taking it apart or taking the spring out of it. Just go ahead and wipe it down. Again, just one wipe will be fine, or if you want to do, you know, clean, dry, clean, that's totally up to you. Here we go. I'm just going to go ahead and wipe off the outside of the receiver because there's just all kinds of crud on it and stuff. I'm just going to go ahead and get that cleaned off. We'll do this one more time once the gun is completely finished. I do have a Velcro patch on this side for a side saddle for extra shells. Okay, now we'll go ahead and wipe out the inside of the receiver in here. Alright, so here we go. I'm already starting to see some metal-to-metal wear where that's happening inside of here, so I can see where that bolt is going to be rubbing up against the inside of the receiver. Again, just make sure that has some lubricant on it, so just a patch with a drop of oil. It's already starting to kind of wear through some of that bluing after the shots we took last weekend. Also on the front here, just go ahead and wipe out the inside of this with your cloth. That'll also make it very easy when you put the barrel back in to have a little bit of lubrication on there. Wipe out the inside of your port. And that looks pretty good, okay? Again, I'm using the headlamp, which is why the lighting looks kind of wonky, but it makes it easier for you guys to see because this is just all black. You wouldn't be able to see anything otherwise. Okay. Now, the channels that you have in here, there are parts that ride in here and rest in here. You definitely want to make sure that those have a little bit of lubrication on them. Okay, that looks pretty nice. Let's go ahead and, well, at this point, I guess we begin the process of reassembly. So this is where you might want your cup of coffee. All right, so here we go, reassembly. What I like to do is take this little tab that's on the top of the bolt and just press down on it to the point that it just basically becomes flush with the top of the bolt so it's not sticking up. Go ahead and take your bolt and feed it into the front of the receiver. Hopefully you guys can see that. And then just go ahead and press it all the way to the rear of the receiver so it locks into place. Okay, just go ahead and lock that into place as such, and we'll move on to the next step. Okay guys, what we want to do now is go ahead and take this part and we're going to squeeze it so that these little pegs right here will go into the holes up on the top. So go ahead and do so. Go ahead and squeeze that and put it down in there. You'll have to push the bolt forward a little bit in order for this to work. So go ahead and do that. There we go. Okay, now they're locked in place. I'm going to go ahead and push the bolt back in here. There we go. Okay, and we will go on from there. Okay guys, next step here, go ahead and take your action and drop it on top of your bolt. So it's going to sit basically just like this, okay? And then go ahead and take your forearm piece, your handguard, and let's go ahead and slide it back on the magazine tube at this point. Okay, we're going to make sure that it goes through the two little slots on the front of the receiver right here. Let's go ahead and push those through. There we go. Now what's going to happen here, you see the part that's moving right here? These little tabs. Okay, these little guys right here are going to go underneath your action, which is then going to rest on top of your bolt. Okay, so that's the next thing that we're going to do is combine these parts together. Alright, so we'll go ahead and we'll lift up on that action right here just a little bit. Pull the forearms under, lock them into place. Okay, so everything's going to basically look like this when it's all put together. There we go. So we took those little forearm tabs, they're now on the sides of the action itself, which is also part of the bolts. Okay, leave it about halfway down and we will go on to our next step. Okay, up next we want to install our cartridge stop and our cartridge interceptor. These are only going to fit one way when you put them back in, so you really can't make any mistakes on them. They don't like to stay in there, so just be prepared to hold them in place while we finish up this particular reassembly. Okay guys, we have the cartridge stop and the cartridge interceptor here. Very, very simple. You've got a tab, you got a little peg right here on this side. It's only going to fit in one way when you put it back into the receiver itself. So we'll go ahead and take that and push it in. This one right here, this guy with the little peg on it, the peg is going to go on the left side. So go ahead and put that in. Now just as a warning, these do not like to stay in place. So we're just going to go ahead and sit them in there and they'll lock back into these little slots. Okay, that one just popped right back into place. It's just sitting in there. I'm gonna kind of hold it up with my finger. The next one we're going to, again, this little tying part, this little part that kind of curves, this is gonna go back towards the front, so we'll go ahead and drop it in. There we go. Okay, so just kind of holding everything together with my fingers so that the interceptor and the stop don't come out. You've got this portion on the right side, it's gonna stick out just a little bit. Portion on the left is basically flush. You can see how everything looks inside of there. Okay, this is basically how it's all spaced apart at this point. We're gonna go ahead and pull back on this portion just a little bit. We're gonna pull back just a little tiny bit to get this portion to move down towards the bottom, which basically at this point is going to lock everything into place. These little bars are now braced in here with this portion keeping them up against the sides of the receiver. Okay, at this point, I went ahead and just pushed the bolt forward just a little ways. We want to be able to put our trigger pack back in, so we're gonna push that up. It's gonna be kind of tough because that cartridge stop and that cartridge interceptor are going to try to get away from you. And you've got a couple little notches on the front of the trigger pack here. Those are going to lock into this portion of the receiver that's cut as you slide it all back into place. There we go. Okay, it's gonna go right back into place just like that. Now I can see all the way through the hole in the side of the receiver. Just gonna go ahead and take my pin and slide it in. If you need to, you can kind of move the trigger pack around a little bit to get it to go. I'm just basically be able to just hand press that back in. If you have to tap it, you know, you want to be very careful just to make sure something's not misaligned. If you can see all the way through that hole, the pin's going to go right back into place and you are good to go. Okay, now at this point, we should be able to just go ahead and, there we go, push that down. And that'll lock this portion, this part back down into place. Okay, and we will go ahead and put our barrel back in and we are basically good to go. Okay, we will go ahead and take our barrel and we're going to put that back into place here. It's going to go back into the receiver. Okay. It's going to pull back in and just lock back into place. It's not going to move anymore. And you can go ahead and get that screw going on here for the magazine tube. There we go. Go ahead and check in there. Yep. Inside the receiver here, not sure if you guys can see that, but inside of here you can see where the lug from the barrel is as far back into the receiver as it possibly can be. We are in fact unloaded, so let's just go ahead and test the action a couple times here. Press the button down on the bottom of the receiver to pump. Now I've only taken this apart and cleaned it one time. Not fun to do in my opinion, but again, when you go through it a couple times, it's not impossible. It's much smoother than it was out of the box though. I do like it, and we'll just do one dry fire here. We are empty. Okay. Okay, and we're good to go. All right, guys, so that basically wraps it up. Let's just say a few final words. Okay, everybody, I appreciate your patience as we went through all the different steps of getting this particular shotgun cleaned up. Again, reassembly that bolt's the only tricky part, just because you've got 4 or 5 different moving parts that all have to fit together like a little jigsaw puzzle. But again, with a little bit of practice, you'll get it figured out. If you guys have any questions or comments, please go ahead and let me know down below. But that's it, guys. In the meantime, I want you to like and subscribe, mash that bell so you don't miss any videos. I want you guys to have fun. I want you to be safe, and as you know, we will talk to you soon. All right, thanks for watching. Bye-bye.